Hi everyone, I'm Josh Elke from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I've been working with Leanne and some of our other partners such as LDF here just in the last few years with the Chilliquin Community Project here and trying to reduce some of the fuels. I can't help but send my thanks to the person that did speak out and personally give their testimony on the work that's being done and the technical resources that have been available here and will continue to be available here in the months ahead. We have been shoveling out hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year in trying to stop what has just happened here in the last few weeks, and we'll continue those efforts. Our process, like was stated earlier, it's a pretty long, tedious process. It's not something that just takes a matter of a few weeks. For us at NRCS, we're looking for projects that are about 20 acres or larger in size. We're really looking at making large landscape management decisions here and trying to reduce those as much as possible. And then, like this gentleman over here was saying, you know, combining neighbors together and being transparent with one another and in the work that's being conducted and letting others know of these resources that are available. Together, you guys can make some pretty large impacts. The fuel break was a good example of those. We drove around today as an office and looked at some of those projects and some of the responses that we've seen. We're pretty happy with them. I have a couple handouts on this southern table over here. The first one that I'd like to point you guys to is this disaster assistance programs at a glance. You guys don't have that, you guys can pick that up, that's on that far table. What it does is it gives a nice breakdown of what kind of disaster assistance is available, whether it's floods and fires, and what the right agency is to approach for those instances. Take a look at that. Another one that I'd like to point you to as well is after the fire. And this is really where NRCS comes in, and it really does a good job of showcasing kind of what our work does from start to finish. And that's that's where our work with ODF comes in. And we work with private landowners and have foresters from ODF come out, make these assessments on your property, looking at what kind of fire hazards remain, what kind of pests may present themselves in the future, and trying to remedy those as quickly as possible. We start with the application process, and it has to go through cultural resources, and some of those things take some time. Right now, we're looking at about $800,000 that's going to be delivered here for the same type of work that we had done last year, which was closer to $1 million. We have a couple more years yet on this project, so there's some additional opportunities here to take advantage of, so you haven't missed a boat yet. Is there any questions that you guys have?
Where do you get the application?
You can get those at NRCS. We have those available online as well. I recommend taking a look at some of these printed resources. They'll have online websites for you to take a look at and see. So again, those 20-acre or larger pieces is really what we're looking for to try and make some large impacts. So if you fall within that 20-acre or larger proximity, I would recommend, just consulting NRCS and seeing what options available. And that's whether you're impacted by the fire directly or whether you're looking at trying to reduce your fire risks as well.
Now, does this consist of, like, okay, everything got hard, forest? How about replanting?
Yeah, so that's where I'm glad you mentioned replanting, because we've been in discussions, this morning and in the previous weeks about what exactly that means. And I think the severity maps are really going to help us dictate and determine what's exactly going on out there. But we rely heavily on our foresters to make
the application last year or so ago, and nothing's ever been done yet, but now the fire did it for you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
About 45 acres.
Yeah, so there's still opportunities there. So even if you filled out the application last year, like we're saying, it takes a long time to go through that process. But there's still opportunities there, even with the application that you have in already, to be able to make those treatments. It may not be as heavy of a treatment as what you would have had before, but that doesn't mean that there isn't treatments that still remain.
What we got is lots of burned down trees that are 30 years old, 20 foot tall.
Yeah.
About 80% lost.
Yeah.
You know, they have to be cleaned out, replanted.
Right. So that's where ODF comes on. They do on-site inspections, and so there's no cookie cutter approach to this. We're taking an evaluation of where buildings are, where standing trees are, how close are those to those buildings, and, you know, what are we really looking at as far as, you know, the survivability of the stands that remain. And, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess I have a suggestion, what worked for us in Latacoma. You know, Latacoma Shores is a very small parcel, 4-acre parcel, and I know that a lot of folks maybe have 5-acre parcels, but you're saying you're looking at 40-acre, 20-acre, 40-acre parcels. So community leadership is pretty critical. So getting your neighbors involved really helped us. I mean, the process that we went through with ODF, I had a list of all the homeowners in the affected areas, permission slip, with the self-addressed stamped envelope. Everybody sent those back except for the ones who were presumably dead. And they were able just to go through the treatment with that permission. So for, you know, the intermediate level, if you have 45 acres, okay, you can do that on your own. But for places, you know, if you're an area with 5-acre parcels or 10-acre parcels, get some community leadership and get some involvement, because you can get everybody to come together. It doesn't take that much work, so you have to do the handling, and I'm not sure how often RCS does it, but that worked really well for us. Actually went pretty quickly. We got that done in like a year. So it did actually go pretty quickly. So yeah, get involved with your neighbors and get some kind of committees or anything like that, and just get some communication in there and you go on much better. Nobody said that. They just, they're, you know, the only people who did respond were passed. So that's my nice success story.
Yeah.
Josh, if I can add something too,
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly what Emily will add with FSA, but one of the important things, and this came up on one of the webinars today, is if you're working with NRCS already or are looking potentially for one of these recovery programs through NRCS or FSA, if you're looking for something that you want to be covered with, federal or funding assistance, you cannot do the work ahead of time. You have to have their involvement, their assessments. And so I know it's hard to look at, this is specifically for the people that have been affected by the fire. I know it's hard to see the damage on your property, but if you are looking to get assistance with that, please don't start the work ahead of time, because they won't be able to retroactively cover it. Another suggestion is taking lots of pictures, because things do change, and these resources are overwhelmed right now with a lot going on, a lot of different programs, still trying to figure everything out, and they may not be able to respond in a timely fashion. So if you're concerned about things changing, erosion happening or trees falling here or there, take lots of pictures to document the status of your property so that you have that when they finally are able to get out there and assess with you. So just
And thanks, Leanne, for adding that, because it seems to be a common misconception. There's multiple agencies that have different opportunities to seek those funds. Some can seek them afterwards. In our instances, you need to be seeking them before those treatments occur. But I also want to highlight something on the application process as well, and that that's part of why those assessments are so important. Is we want to make sure that we're making calculated, educated moves, and we have those technical experts on your property, so that we're just not, weekend wood cutting here and taking out trees that we feel are damaged, but they may have some opportunities to survive. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah.
And it takes an average of 18 months to respond to that. Do anything about it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
It
that.
takes 18 months to
Yeah, sometimes it takes right around 12 to 18 months. Our cultural resources process is pretty slow.
So we aren't supposed to leave our property for 18 months?
Yeah,
We could have 4 feet of snow this winter, and then it's all gonna melt, and all of our property's just gonna go right down to Highway 62. It's gonna be covering the highway.
right. And I think that's the benefit of what this meeting is here for, is we're here to bring all of these stakeholders together and recognize how many different resources are available for these situations, because not one scenario is the same throughout. And so that's where those on-sites really make a difference, and being able to get out there quickly to be able to assess damage so that we know. And with that said, you know, that application process, with delivery of any federal funds, there has to be, for us, a ranking process, a screening process that shows who is in the most need of these versus the individual who's not as in need of those resources. And so that's how those funds are delivered, is on a, it's not on a first come, first serve, it's on a most needed basis.
So you would think about landslides, that type of thing?
Yep.
Be considered?
Yep, landslides, soil erosion control measures, those are all items that are important to not just the removal of the fuel breaks and fire.
Also, to clarify, with the NRCS, when people call and sign up and show their interest, it doesn't take 18 months for you to come out and do the assessment, right?
No.
Right, I think that people are going, oh man,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna come here for 18 months, I'm lost.
No, it's not, it just takes a long time for those funds to go from here to there, and for all the paperwork to be aligned such so that the project is shovel-ready and to go. And sometimes that does take, up to 18 months for those projects to get up and off the ground. Sometimes it's less than that. It just depends on, what kind of cultural resources we're running into on a site, how elaborate that report needs to get written, and, the State Historic Preservation Office has, 3 months. It's like a 3-month process from start to finish, just that consultation. So that takes quite a bit of time. Yep.
So Josh, I know with the fuel mitigation funding that NRCS has, it can take a while, 12 to 18 months. But with the disaster assistance programs, which are more for emergency related things like seeding and soil erosion,
Yeah.
can that process go quicker? Because
Yes.
it's more of an emergency to get the work done?
Yeah, we'll turn you back to this handout right here. You'll see that there's plenty of other, options that are out there. There's an emergency watershed protection program that's meant to just plug in immediately to try and take care of those soil erosion control measures that you're talking about, where, we have all of this water coming down and now we don't have any residue to really keep this ground in place. So there are backup options. We're talking, there's multiple avenues through NRCS and FSA to get this work done, as well as all the other partners that are here.
What is NRCS?
The Natural Resources Conservation Service. Started back in the 30s off of soil erosion during the Dust Bowl.
So you have several programs, you're talking about the fuel reduction,
Yep.
which is through the NRCS.
Yep, that would be this
which
map
has taken a
here.
while, because are they utilizing ODF to do the manual work on the, or some kind of work on the ground? And that takes a while, and are you saying that with the disaster assistance, there are other,
Yeah.
quicker?
Yeah, so if soil erosion is your concern, I would highly encourage you to go more of the disaster assistance route rather than the fuel mitigation route, because now you're on a different time scale than what you were before. That would be the avenue that I would encourage you to go. If you're in an area that maybe you aren't impacted by fire, but you would be within the black boundary here, I would encourage you to go through the Chiloquin Joint Chiefs effort. That's a little bit more of the longer, tedious process where you're being more proactive in treating those fuels before they actually occur. Any other questions? I think I got all the questions so far.
I'm just gonna offer one. So this landowner said that she's concerned about water runoff and the time.
Yep.
One of the things for post-fire mitigation that a landowner could do right away and not interfere maybe is just fall the trees on on the contour to capture the soil. It's a very, very common mitigation measure on post-fire that a landowner could do, is just fall your smaller trees on the contour to carry the soil. So that's something in the next month or two that might not interfere with the funding, but at least if we have rain in November and stuff, it does hold the soil. Very, very common.
Sure. And I think that's where, for us, the important part, I'm not a forester, and so I don't want to make prescriptions for treatments. And so I think that's where the on-site visits by, certified foresters and technical experts to be able to go out there and help you make those decisions on what trees you could potentially fall to help save the soil erosion from occurring.
Are you saying that those assessments can be done fairly quickly? Like you have manpower to do that?
Yeah, I think it all depends on how many people we're really looking at. I mean, we're still kind of in the preliminary stages of how many people and what are the needs and what are the needs specifically in this area. Maybe there's others, and targeting those locations and trying to figure out if there's more individuals that we can help than just the one that came to us, like the gentleman in the back there was talking about and sharing his story of how that worked successfully for him. Yep.
I have a question about, we have fire mitigation roads that were put in around our development. I know you're talking about erosion. Will those lead into the neighborhood perhaps with the rains?
I'm not for sure. I don't know the specific scenario that you're talking about or location. I hate to speak on behalf of that, but I think again here too, being able to understand the resources that are available to you today. If it's a structural thing, with FEMA or fences, with FSA, or just fuel mitigation with us or soil erosion control. That's really, I guess, the goal for us or for NRCS today is to be able to help, guide you towards what that best agency is or partner is to be able to go on site and help you specifically with your scenario.
So some of that stuff is still happening. The smoke's out of the air, but there's still a lot of resources. I don't know if I did the best job of introducing myself. I'm the Assistant Fire Management Officer for the Forest Service here in Chillicothe, so plus a lifelong resident of the area. But there's still a lot of work being done out there, and even though the smoke is left and we've got a lot of that taken care of, we're doing a lot of those things now on those, as you described, the trails, the fire lines that we put in that have potential for erosion. We're doing things there to help mitigate that as we move forward. On the Forest Service side of the fence, that's also working with our partners on the private property side of things as well. ODF and the Forest Service are still, hit the hip here with that process and making sure that we're taking care of some of those things. We didn't just leave. We're still out there in the shadows doing far less glamorous work at this point, but it's nonetheless important. So that stuff is still taking place, and if you have an area that you're specifically concerned about, then you can talk to some of the ODF partners in the room or myself, and we can try to